Hello and welcome to another wonderful book video. I feel like it's been actually forever since I've sat down and done a proper book video, so I'm very excited. Plus, today we're talking about an amazing series. As always, we're talking about Powerless by Lauren Roberts. It has 3 books and then 2 novellas, which is a total of 5 works, if you couldn't keep up with that simple math. And it has discourse over if it's plagiarized, it's a cute romantasy, it has magic, it has everything. So I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys. And just so you know, there will be spoilers within this video. I'm going to be talking about the series as a whole and kind of my thoughts on each of the books and plot points and things like that. So if you haven't read it, please go read it, listen to it, whatever you do with books, and then come back here and watch this video. I'm going to start talking about the controversy first, just because I feel like it's kind of the elephant in the room. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, Powerless, the series by Lauren Roberts, is often compared or critiqued kind of that it's too similar to the series Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. So I personally have read the first book in the Red Queen series, Red Queen, ages and ages ago. I've read it twice, I believe, and both times I've liked it, just not enough to pick up the second book. So I am by no way an expert on like what actually is the same between these series. So please, if you're interested in that topic, go find another wonderful creator who has that knowledge, because that's not me. So basically, people were just saying after they read Powerless that they were like, oh, this really reminded me of Red Queen, and started comparing that and started being like, hey, these are like too similar, and a lot of the plot things happen in both of the books. It even honestly got to the point where the author, Victoria Aveyard, of the first series that came out, the Red Queen series, she made like some TikToks talking about it and was like, hey guys, that's not plagiarism unless they like take exactly what you say. And she even said like a great analogy, I feel like, or not, it's not an analogy, but an example. She was like, you can give 2 writers the exact same like structure of a story and then have them both write it, and those stories are going to be so different because the author is what makes that different and the actual writing is what makes that different. So I think that's so beautiful and true. So I don't know enough about the situation to like really know, but the fact that the author of the first series that people say is like plagiarized is not that bothered about it makes me feel not that bothered about it, you know? So I don't know, take it as you will. The first book in the series is Powerless, and this series follows Peyton. Yes, I know, I hate that name. They eventually call her Pay most of the time, which is better to me, but I hate the name Peyton. Sorry, all the Peytons. But Peyton is in a world called Aaliyah, or that's their country, I guess, kingdom, I don't know. But they have powers in this kingdom, like kind of magic powers, I guess you would say. So it all came from this like plague that happened hundreds of years ago that wiped out like half their population, but then the other half came out stronger and are called elites and have powers. So there's a wide range of powers that you can have. Some are like the elites are like the top powers that you want. There's so many different ones. And then on the mundane side are the ones that aren't really helpful that much to your life. They're kind of just like, oh, okay. And things like that are like a hyper, which is like you have hyper like senses, like a psychic, a phaser. That's someone who like can go through objects, but not like teleport. They can only go through objects. So I don't know. It's things that like are helpful, but not really that helpful. But our main character, Peyton, does not have any powers, and that is not okay in this world. You must have powers in the kingdom of Aaliyah to stay alive. How fun. So Peyton basically lives in the really poor section of Aaliyah with her best friend, Adina. And Adina is a phaser, as I was saying. She can like pass through things, but Peyton does not have an ability. She lies and says she's a psychic, which no one can really tell if she is or isn't. And she's basically over the years like like honed a really good sense of just being able to read people really well. So then when people are like, prove it, she can be like, oh, kind of like Psych, the show, if you've ever seen that show, where he's like, you have dirt on your shoe and on your pant. You just proposed, or something like that. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know? And then she's like, I'm a psychic. And that's the whole thing. Great for her. She's also a thief. That's like her main way of feeding her and her best friend. Super fun, super cool. The story kind of starts because there's these things called the trials that it happens every 5 years, and it's a bunch of people competing to see who's the strongest. It's not like the Hunger Games where like there's only one victor. There's only one winner, but not everyone else has to, you know. But usually it's kind of a spectacle for the people anyways, because they put mundanes in it as well, who usually don't have powers that allow them to be able to compete against someone who has superhuman strength or like something like that. Like, it's a very unfair, tilted scale. So it is a spectacle of those people and the rest of the world watching. Jumping from Peyton, we also have the brothers who are princes. We have Kit, and then we have Kai. So Kit is older. He is the son of the king, and then his ex-wife, who is dead. Yeah, that's his mom. And then Kai is also the king's son, and then his mom is still alive and well. So they're half brothers. Kit's ability is he has a dual power, which is really, really rare, but he has water ability and fire ability, so kind of fun. But Kai's is like the absolute best power you can have, kind of. He's a wielder, which means he has the ability to take anybody else's power that's in his vicinity, basically. So if his brother's in his vicinity, he can be a fire or water. He can be a brawny, he can be a healer, he can be anything as long as that person's close enough to him. But it is kind of fun because when no one's near him with powers, he's powerless as well. So kind of cool. We'll get into that later. I like that dichotomy, but he is super powerful, and he is supposed to be known as like the most powerful because Kit is being set up to be the heir, the king eventually, and then Kai is being set up to be the enforcer, like the strength, the soldier, the person that does all the bad things for the king. The brothers have a fantastic relationship. They love each other. They were not raised in like the best conditions. The king is a bit of a jerk, to say the least. Kai definitely got like the most of that trauma and the most of the brutality of their father, but Kit still got it, but like in kind of more mind game ways. And they never really felt like true love from anyone but each other. So they're very, very close in this bond. The story kind of starts for them when Kai is sent to go to, they call them the slums, and get some people who don't have powers and like look into them and stuff. And this is the first time we see Kai. We see him having to be this like strong enforcer type, but we also kind of see his true character because he doesn't want to do it. It's a child. He doesn't children, so he eventually kind of lets her go, and he basically exiles them instead, the family. And then when he's coming back, he runs into Peyton. Peyton actually sees him and doesn't know that it's the prince because no one really knows who Kai is. Like, I don't know, he's not as recognizable as Kit, I guess. I don't know why she doesn't know who he is, but she ends up robbing him because she's a thief, and it's very fun and cute, and they're like flirting, and they're both like, wait, oh my gosh. And then Kai, though, as he can pick up on other people's powers, he's like, what's your power? I don't feel any of your power. And she's like, ha 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 ha, what a funny thing. And then she kind of disappears. And then we see her again because Kai gets in trouble because he starts almost dying because someone attacks him, and they're called a silencer, which is also very interesting. A silencer is one of the fatals. So these are a group of like people with powers that are considered fatal ones. So the silencer, which is they can silence anyone else's powers, so then that person is powerless, and even to the point of like death. There's mind readers. There are are like people who can control you completely. I feel like I'm missing another one that they don't talk about as much. But it's anything really where like you're not in control of yourself is what like a fatal is. And those are not supposed to exist anymore, basically. The king has eradicated the fatals as well. But Kai runs into the silencer. He's never experienced that. He doesn't know what to do. He's sitting there like almost dying. Peyton comes in and eventually saves him and is able to fight off the silencer. She's able to do this because she doesn't have powers, and we know that as the audience, but Kai doesn't know that. And he questions her further and is like, why can he not do anything to you? And then Peyton kind of gives, I think, a bad excuse, and it's just like, oh, my power is so weak that you can't sense it and he can't sense it. And then he's like, okay, then prove you're a psychic. And she like does her little thing where she like notices things about them. And then he's like, oh, okay, you are a psychic. And I'm like, you have never ever run into someone who you could not feel their power. Why would you believe this? I don't know. It's weird to me, but alas. Because Peyton saves Kai, everyone eventually knows it's Kai. And because he's supposed to be big and powerful enforcer, best ability, she gets deemed the silver savior. She has silver hair, by the way. I haven't said that, but I guess that's kind of an important plot point. So she gets donned the silver savior. And everyone, when they are voting that week for who goes into the trials, they vote for her because they're like, she saved the enforcer. She could actually win this thing. Because I don't really know exactly how like the semantics of the trials work, but I think you basically have to submit people and then those like of the mundanes and stuff, and they will also be picked. So she gets picked. She gets thrown into these trials. Very, very bad news. So she's distraught, obviously. She's like, I'm not going to survive this. I don't even have a power, and I'm going up against some of the best of powers in the kingdom and people who have trained their entire lives, kind of like Capitals, kind of like Capitals in the Hunger Games, like the 1s and 2s and stuff. Like they've been training, and then you're the 12 that has like nothing. So she's kind of doomed. But again, there's not like one person who survives, like multiple people can survive. So that's kind of her hope here. It's also very sad. She has to say bye to her best friend Adina, and they don't know if they're ever going to see each other again. And it's all just like very sad moment. But Teehee, who's also in the trials, none other than Kai. So Peyton gets brought to the castle of the kingdom where Kit and Kai are, and the rest of the contestants for the trials. I should say Kit is not in the trials. He, as the heir and the future king, cannot be in the trials because that's too dangerous if something happened to him. But Kai, it's kind of always been his destiny to be in it because he has to prove himself and prove that he can be the enforcer and is this scary person that everyone perceives him to be. So he has been like forced his whole lifetime he knew he was going into the trials. Cool. There's other side characters that are in the trials. Like they always call him their younger brother, Jax. They're not actually blood related. Jax's parents died when he was young, and I think they're actually cousins, and then they bring him in and they kind of like grow up with him. He's in the trials. He's like a teleporter, which is kind of cool, but also I'm like, that's not that strong of an ability. I feel like that and a phaser, how is that different? Riddle me that. I don't know. There are other cousins in it. Andy, hers is cool. She can turn into any animal. Cool, fun. We also have Blair, who is, she has telekinesis, so she can really manipulate anything and move you completely. She can strangle you against the wall if she wants. Very strong power. We have Kai, obviously, who's a wielder. We have 2 more people who are mundanes. We have, one who's an illusionist, which is cool. He can make an illusion. So if you're running and all of a sudden you see someone that you love like screaming out in pain and you like want to go help them, he can create that illusion for you so you think it's real, and in reality that's not true at all, and he can be hurting you basically. And then another girl who can go invisible. So cool. I think that's basically everybody that I remember in the trials. But anyways, so they get to the kingdom. They're all kind of like hanging out, whatever. Peyton's not really like happy, obviously, to be in these trials. There's a lot of opulence around her too. She's been like starving and like trying to find food and money and like struggling her whole life, and then all of a sudden now she sees all these things. Also, there's the added layer too of her dad was a healer, which is basically just a doctor but like better. But he was a healer and he worked in the kingdom, like they're kind of forced to, because they want to save the higher ups obviously first. And he was a great man, and she actually witnessed him dying, and she believes the king was the one who was behind this and like who actually like stabbed him to death. And she was there that night, and she hates the king for that reason. So she's also kind of here to get vengeance for that. So that's kind of fun. And she does not play it very cool. She's like, "You knew my father?" And is like, "Yeah." And then also Kit, this is the first time she's meeting Kit, and Kit also has the same green eyes as his father, and that triggers her. She cannot look Kit in the eye for like ever. I'm like, girl, be more obvious that you're upset, because she has no problem looking at Kai. She loves looking at Kai, but when she's looking at Kit, she's like, no thank you. So yeah, there's flirty elements of the first interaction with Kit, but it's always when it's the interactions with Kit, to me, it's always like Peyton's very much like, hey, besties, friends, like this is fun. And Kit's like, ooh, I like you. And she's just like, besties, fun. But then when it's the situations with Kai, it's very much both like, ooh, I like you. Like they're both into each other. So that's kind of the dynamic. I feel like from the very start, you know, she's going to end up with Kai, which I'm fine with. I mean, most of the time you always don't know who they're going to end up with, because the author wants to lead you in that direction, so you're not disappointed. And I love Kai. I'm not disappointed. Honestly, my favorite part about this series in total was the relationship between Peyton and Kai. I think it was really, really beautifully written. I think I screenshotted so many, like, not screenshotted, I took pictures of so many, like, passages in the book, because it was so beautiful and just, like, so beautifully written, like, their love story. So definitely my favorite part. Basically, there's a lot of, like, pomp and circumstance before the trials. They have like balls, and then they, I don't know, stupid stuff like that. That's just, I mean, it's not stupid, it's important, but kind of filler that we're moving past. We get to the first trials. It's like kind of a Hunger Games-esque moment where they're like in an arena and they have to survive for 7 days, and that's kind of, and then they can get gifts from like sponsors, kind of the same thing. Peyton almost dies in this, and eventually Kai actually saves her, and he's kind of like conflicted about this, because he's like, why do I want to save this girl when like it would be one step closer to me winning if I, you know, her? And he's like, why do I feel this way? That's crazy, and doesn't really know what to do about it. It freaks him out a lot because he's never felt that way to someone. I mean, he loves his brother, and that's like the only kind of love he's ever had in his life, but it's not the same kind of love, obviously, so he's confused by it. And they had such freaking cute moments in this first trials. They like slow dance together. They're spending literally like all their time together, so they have like just such cute moments of just like getting to know each other more, learning more about each other. They end up getting attacked by another one of the people, and they eventually have to, her and this is actually Peyton's first death that she's been a part of, kind of. So she feels super guilty. So because of that, Kai like buries the body and like gives it a whole like flowers and all of these things for her, which is like sweet. See, I'm like, Kai's so sweet. Yeah, and they just bond a lot through these trials. And there's actually, I think there's 5 trials or maybe 4. I don't really remember. It seemed like an arbitrary number to me, because the contestants were like, is this the last trial? I feel like they never quite knew. The rest of the trials are kind of the same. More people keep ending, more people keep, you know, other people are getting more points. And then like through each, Kai is protecting Peyton, even to the point where like sometimes he's like purposely losing. Like he lets Peyton win one of them at the end, because it's like both of them at the very finish line, and then he's like, you go get it, girl. And it's like he's purposely kind of like pushing her forward so she survives more. And then between all the trials, there's more balls, there's more dinners, there's more like public interviews, things like that. And through all of that time, Kai and Peyton are also getting closer and like forming more of a bond. It's very clear they're heavily flirting at this point and everything. And then also there's her relationship with Kit, which is kind of hard because it's kind of it's odd to me in the very start, at least at the beginning, because it's always framed as Kai meets her first and Kai has a crush on her first. And Kit knows this. Kit knows that Kai has a crush on her. I mean, like, crush, like, he knows he likes her, and she's coming to these trials and all this stuff. But even yet, and like, even his first interaction with Peyton, he's like, oh, you're who my brother keeps talking about. So he's very aware of the situation, but yet Kit still tries to pursue her, which I'm like, that's so weird to me, because they're supposed to be these such close brothers. And it's like, if you knew your brother had a crush on this girl, why would you make a play at her? And then, like, blatantly, Kai will flirt in front of Kit with Peyton and be like, oh, do you need help, like, doing that? Like, I don't know, just like flirting with her. And Kit won't flirt with Peyton either, but then later when they're alone, he'll flirt with her. I'm like, so you're being kind of like a snake. You're being kind of shady to me. I didn't like that. I was like, at least be honest and upfront about it. Like, and like, Kai knows it's happening just because, like, he knows his brother, but like, it's all very a weird situation to me. And Peyton doesn't like encourage Kit's like flirtation, but she also doesn't shut it down, which is fair because she's also just trying to survive. And at this point, she's like, whatever's gonna get me through that. If it's the king, or if it's the prince, if it's the other prince, if it's just me, I don't really care. Like, she is just trying to get through it. And she's also battling her own feelings for Kai, because she also hasn't been shown a lot of love in her life. So she's also struggling with the fact of like, and also that her father's killer's son would be the person that she loves is kind of hard for her to grapple with, obviously. So there's a lot going on in all of it. Also during this time, Peyton actually gets contacted, she kind of figures out and then like kind of gets contacted, whatever, by the Resistance. This is a group of a bunch of some mundanes, some I forget what it's called, but when like your parents were like one person with power and one person without power, so then you still have powers, but it's like way weakened powers, and then people without any powers, which are called ordinaries. It's like kind of a group of that, plus some fatals, because again, fatals were also trying to be eradicated by the king. So it's a group of them that is the Resistance, and they are trying to start an uprising against the king and against how like ordinaries and fatals and all these people aren't allowed to survive in this world. And it actually was started by her father, Peyton realizes, and that's like really amazing to her. And she meets her father's best friend, Callum, who is like now the leader of the Resistance. He's a fatal, he's a mind reader. So that's like why he's part of it. And then his daughter, Mara, is a silencer as well. So she's also a fatal, so very strong lineage. And then, so through that, the Resistance kind of is like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if you could actually lead us to the tunnels? Because in the last trial, they're going to be in like the arena of the kingdom, and the king and queen and princes are going to be there, and the Resistance wants to have a like moment then and like capture the king and all of these things, and they need the underground tunnels to do that. So they task Peyton with getting closer to Kit, because Kit knows where the tunnels are. So this is like a whole plan. So after this fact, Peyton does kind of go more out of her way to befriend Kit and get closer to Kit, because she has to get him to trust her so that he will show her the tunnels. And again, this is where it's like, in these interactions, I think it's very clear. And like, even I think in the book, Peyton says like, I love being friends with Kit, friend zone. And then Kit's like, I really like you. And she's like, tee, friends. So it's like very much mixed. Like, she does not have feelings for Kit, but Kit definitely has feelings for her. So it's kind of like weird. He eventually does show her the tunnels, kind of weirdly, like he's never shown anyone. And then this girl he's known for like 3 weeks, he's like, yeah, come in these tunnels. But he does. And this is when she's like, okay, great. And this is kind of coming on the finale of the first book. So the Resistance is ready to go. They have this big thing at the final trials. The final trials is happening. They need to survive Kai and Peyton. Cool, great. So the final trials end up being like this like hedge maze where they have to like run through, and it keeps closing in on them and like whatever. And then at the end, there's a criminal that they have to kill as like the final thing. So Peyton and Kai are separated, so they can't really like help each other much during this. There's battles and stuff. Obviously, they both make it to the end. actually Peyton makes it to the end first, and the criminal she sees is actually her best friend Adina, who she left and who was a seamstress, and she ended up like making her dresses for like the balls and stuff. She like brought her to the kingdom, and Adina's tied up and Peyton's crying. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to get her out of this. And then all of a sudden Blair, one of the other contestants, comes in and kills her. So Adina is dead and Peyton is absolutely distraught, cannot believe this. This was like her person, her only family she's had for the last like 5 years. Like, Adina is so sweet, doesn't deserve any of this, is obviously not a criminal. Like, this is a thing to get back at Peyton, and it's just like awful. And then during this, Kai sees this and is like, oh my gosh, her anguish, like, I don't know, this makes me feel awful, I don't know what to do. And then meanwhile, while all of this is happening, then the resistance comes in. And they do get to like the king's box, and they have the king and the queen, and they have Kit. And then silencers are all around, so they're silencing all of the elite's powers within the arena. It seems like it's kind of going good, of like they're getting their message out, that because the king has told the kingdom to like this like propaganda that the ordinaries have to be killed, eradicated, because they are like diseased basically, and if you like procreate with them and stuff, we will be eradicated like with powers. Like, no one will have powers anymore. They keep getting diluted and diluted to the point where if ordinaries are still in our community, there'll be no more elites left, and that's like the worst thing in the world. And that's not really true. And it's like a whole thing of like if they're diseased or not. So that's what the resistance is trying to say, that they're not. And they get interrupted, and eventually Kai actually breaks out of the silencer's hold, which is humongous. That has like never been done. Never been done before, Diva. Like, literally crazy. Literally, he's kind of going off. And it's because he's been practicing with a silencer. Because he's a wielder, he can like turn it back on them. So that's what he eventually does with this silencer. He takes the silencer's power and puts it on the silencer, if that makes sense. So he's silencing the silencer's ability of silencing him. Great. Were you silent or were you silenced? Big deal. And he gets out of it and he starts fighting people, and then that kind of like creates this whole thing of it all kind of going in chaos. And then the resistance was not really ready for this fight, and because there are a lot of ordinaries versus a lot of elites, a lot of them, it's kind of a massacre basically of the resistance members. And in this though, Kai notices though that Peyton is nothing's happening to her. Like, no resistance members were attacking her like they were other people. So he's kind of like, okay, clocked, weird. Which I'm like, guys, why wouldn't you set this up? This is supposed to be like your spy, and you're not going to protect her at all? Great. Cool. Great job, guys. He's like, that's suspicious. That's weird. And also at this point too, like the night before the trials, Kai and Peyton kind of have their like biggest romantic moment where they almost kiss. They're kind of like admitting their feelings for each other for the very first time. So it's a big deal. And he's like trusting her and doing all this stuff. And then like he's kind of like questioning her now, because he's like, wait, are you a part of this resistance? Like, hello, what's happening? And then it all culminates to Peyton can't really leave Adina, but then she's forced to. She has to go back to the castle because she makes Adina this stupid promise, honestly, in my mind. Adina's like, will you wear this vest I made you? And then Peyton's like, yes, I will every day. So then she has to go all the way back to the castle to get the vest. Dangerous, super dangerous and stupid, but she does, and she goes all the way back. And there she gets healed by a healer because they don't know what's happening and they don't know she's like part of the resistance. And then eventually when she's like on her way back to, she's gonna like flee, that's like her plan, she runs into the king, and the king starts attacking her and is like saying some stuff of like, I knew it was you, I knew it from the moment I saw you, like, you're an ordinary, I never believed you have powers, I thought these trials would take care of you, but since they haven't, it's like my responsibility to now. He has a sword and she doesn't have any weapons on her. Actually, she has her father's like dagger, but I'm pretty sure she like can't get to it or something like that. So it's kind of a very unfair fight. And it gets to the point where like she almost is, and then the king actually carves an O right above her heart with his sword to like mark her as always being ordinary. And like, that's what she is. She's no more than like an ordinary person. And eventually, Peyton is able to like flip this back on him, and she does end up eradicating him. And it's actually caught by, there's also these people called, I think they're called like watchers or something, and they can like record, and then that's basically like the cameras in this world. Kind of weird, but, or it's a seer or something like that. I don't know. But one of those people see her do this. Not good for Peyton. And then also, like, after that, Kai comes rushing out. His dad has her dagger in his neck. And yeah, that's a bit of incriminating evidence. And Kai is so confused. And I love this moment because he truly is just such a lost boy. He doesn't know what to do. His father is dead. His father, who was not good to him, who was very abusive, who was very awful to him, who never showed him love, is dead. But it's still his father. It's still the king. And then on the other hand, this girl that he has not known for very long, but has shown him like a new side of himself, who he's really falling for, who he's having all these confusing feelings for, who he really, really, really likes and like trusts and all these things, has just done this. And him as the enforcer, his duty is to then eradicate her. That's literally his job because she just eradicated the king. So it's a beautiful moment where he is just so conflicted. He's mad, he's sad, he's just like does not know what to do. And he basically says like, I can't do anything right now, and I don't have the strength to kill you right now. You need to run, and I will catch up to you when I'm feeling better, and I will kill you, basically is what he says. And that's the end of the first book. Beautiful, beautiful ending. We love that. Okay, next is the first novella of the series. It's called Powerful. And girl, I can't lie to you, I did not like this. I did not like this novella. It felt so weird to me. So the events take place both like before kind of, it's like during the first book. It's about Adina. Yes, fun. Oh, the best friend of the main character. So fun. Wait, Julia, didn't you say that Adina gets horrifically, you know, in the last trial? Yes, she does. Oh, so is this story telling us that that's not true? No, they're telling you it's true. You want to know what's even worse? This is a love story. What? What is going on? So this is literally, so mean. It's so mean. I don't know why the author did this. I did not like it because I was like, why are you making me like this character even more after I know they already die? Huh? That is so weird to me. So basically the story is of Adina once Peyton is off at the trials. So she's like alone. And then she meets this guy, Mac, who kind of like takes her in and is like, hey, I need your help, because she's like the best seamstress, to make an imperial, which is like the soldier's costume, or the soldiers, to make this costume of their uniform, to then I can sneak in because he's related to the girl who's the invisible one. It's like his cousin or something. And he wants to save her basically. And Adina's like, that's an awful idea, but yes, I will help you, because why not? She's not doing anything else. And Adina's like a very bubbly, happy, nice person. And Mac is very like grumpy. So it's very grumpy sunshine. I did not dislike their love story each other. I disliked it because I know Adina is going to die. And why are you making me have this pain? So yeah, basically the story is Adina and Mac, and they start bonding and having this beautiful relationship after like both of their loved ones are in the trials and having to deal with that. And then all these things, and eventually at the end Mac chooses her, and like all these things. And then you want to hear what's awful? What's extra awful is when Mac, they're supposed to go, him and Adina are supposed to watch the last trial together. So she never shows up, and he's like, okay, well, I'll just go to the arena and I'm sure I'll see her there. Because fun fact, Mac is actually a wielder as well. He is the only other known wielder in this universe other than Kai. I shouldn't say known because he's not known to anybody but us, the audience, and then Adina also knows this. So he's super uber powerful, but also it's really dangerous for him to be anywhere near Kai, because Kai's basically the only one that can sense that he's also a wielder. And if Kai sensed that, technically he's not allowed to be that, so then Kai would have to eradicate him, which I don't think Kai would really do, but like obviously Mac doesn't know that, because that's like Kai's personality and like perception, people's perception of him is that he would do that. So it's very dangerous, but he goes anyway. And then he's like trying to sense her like power. And he's like, I feel it, but it's like only towards the center of the arena. And he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then he's like, oh, she's in there. And then he's forced to witness her death. Yeah. And he's like crying out in pain. And while like Peyton's crying out in pain, so is he. And then all this resistance stuff happens and he disappears. And then I was like, okay, the only reason maybe why this lovely love story that we know the whole time that she's gonna die, maybe it's because they're gonna set up Mac's character, and Mac's gonna be like a really important, cool character to put in the next books. He does come up again later, but I will tell you, not till the third book, and honestly, not till the end of the third book, and honestly, in a really stupid way, if I'm being honest. Honestly. And it's very annoying because I think it's a cool setup that she could have had this like revenge of Mac, or I thought he would want to team up with Peyton and like help part of the resistance, but his story is really wasted to me, basically. And it's just sad. We have this novella whole time knowing she's gonna die. So it was not my favorite. Moving on to the second book, the third work in this series, we're moving on to Reckless. Now, I was very excited for this book. I thought we left off in a great place. I really liked the story, how it'd been flowing, everything. I think the second book was good, but nothing in this series will top the first book, which is sad, but true. But the first book was amazing. So, okay. So basically we're picking up right where we left off. In the second book, Peyton is now on the run, trying to get away from mostly Kai, but just basically everyone that's out to get her, because she has now been the King Slayer, if you will. And Kai is very still conflicted about what he's supposed to do. Like, should he kill her? Should he not? He feels like he's like, I know that's my duty, but I don't think I'll be able to do it. If it comes down to it, he's like, I don't think I'll be able to do that. So he's very conflicted. She's still in the city because this is like a day or two after. She's actually staying in her old house, and she finds her dad's old journal. And then Kai actually burns the house on fire, and she has to escape. And then he kind of like sees her. He shoots her in the leg with an arrow, but she still gets away. And basically she has to cross the Scorches, which in this kingdom, there's other kingdoms obviously around, but they're all kind of like far away, and they're, you have to get through either the Scorches or the Shallows to get to any of them, which the Scorches is like a huge desert area that's really dangerous. And then the Shallows is like a super dangerous ocean. So both not ideal. So Ilia is kind of like on its own, but the other surrounding kingdoms of like Dor and Tando and ones I forget, they don't care if you're ordinary. Actually, everyone's ordinary. They actually don't like elites because they're elitist, get that, but also they're scared of them because they don't have powers and none of them do. So it's very much like ordinaries are welcome there. So her plan is to cross the Scorches and get to one of these cities and live there. So she sets out on this journey that's very dangerous. She has like no supplies on her, just kind of like raw dogging it. Kai realizes that's what she's doing, so he's like a day or two behind her. She eventually does make it through the Scorches, which is supposed to be very, very impressive, but then kind of a lot of people do later, so I'm like, is it that impressive? I don't know. But she makes it to, I think she's in Dor, and, but Kit, who is now the king back home in Ilia, has sent out warnings to all the kingdoms of how dangerous she is and put her photo out everywhere and stuff. So she has to hide herself completely. So she has like a thing over her hair and like all this stuff so no one can tell it's her, because her silver hair is very unique and very recognizable, of the silver savior and all this stuff. And she ends up like pretending to be a boy and entering a fighting ring. It's kind of irrelevant, but whatever, that's what she's doing. And she's trying to work up enough money to like get food and be able to live and like not have to be a thief and like kind of just start a new life for herself. And all the while Kai is following her. They also make it through the Scorches. At this point too, the number of people that Peyton has killed has increased. I think it's at 3 at this point, and it's like really weighing really heavy on her conscience, and she feels just like more and more like an awful person. And even though all of these killings were kind of out of necessity, that doesn't help her. That doesn't make her feel any better, which understandable. Kai eventually sees her at one of these fighting rings and knows it's her, even though she's pretending to be a boy. And he is like, well, why don't you fight me? And then they like go off separate before the fight. And then they like have this whole conversation. It's kind of weird to me. And then they're both like, well, we were going to kiss that night. And then she's like, well, I didn't want to kiss you. And it doesn't matter. You have no power over me anymore. And so then they kiss to like prove they have no power over each other anymore. Okay, right. And yeah, and also I should say too, I kind of forgot to say, Kai was sent on this mission by Kit. Kit has kind of been, since his dad's died, he has been like holed up in his study, will not see anybody, is not eating. People are saying he's going crazy and he's like the Mad King. And Kai is really worried about Kit. And then Kit basically sends him on this journey as his enforcer now, saying, you have to bring her back to me alive. And I'll do whatever I want to her. And you need to basically do this to show your loyalty of like you to me, not you to her. And Kit is like, you better show me this, brother. Like, you have to be loyal to me and all this stuff. And Kai wants to be loyal to him. He loves his brother, but he also is starting to love Peyton. So it's like conflicting. So anyways, Kai catches up with her, basically then takes her as his prisoner. Him and his men are bringing her back across the Scorches. They end up getting attacked, and it's by some of the resistance members that survived, trying to get Peyton back. They take them to like this camp where that's actually where we first learn about the people who are like have mutated abilities, where it's like or like muted abilities, where it's like they have one parent that's an ordinary and one parent that's an elite. So then there is like people who like have firepower, but they can only do like candles, like they can't do anything else or something like that. And then they end up like learning more about that, and then they break free, and then Kai gets her again. And then there's this scene where they almost die in the water. Basically this whole time too, they both in their own like inner monologues are still saying like, oh, it's so annoying. I still kind of like him, but no, I don't. Like, I don't like them anymore. They're my enemy, and like, I'm letting them go, and like all these things. But then they're fighting each other, but then they're constantly still showing each other that they still like each other, I think, which is kind of a cute dynamic. And it kind of culminates in this scene where they are almost die by this water. They're in a sewer. They're like escaping this other people who caught them. I don't know. Too much, and it doesn't really matter, but they're trying to escape, and they're in a sewer, and then the water's coming in, so basically they're about to drown, and Peyton actually can't swim, so Kai is like, well, I'll hold you. So he is treading the water for both of them, which is crazy. And then at like the very end, she finds a grate, and so she's trying to like get it out, but they have like no air left, and Kai is literally using like all of his energy and air to lift her up. And then she finally gets it open at like the last second, and Kai uses all of his strength to send her up. So she is safe above the water, like out in like above the sewer, and Kai has no more energy. So he sinks to the bottom, and he's like passed out basically. So he basically gives his life for her, even though that's like the exact opposite he's supposed to be doing right now. Peyton realizes he did this. She's like, well, I don't want him to die either. So she dives in after him, even though she can't swim. And she does eventually like get him up enough that like, and like pushes him out basically, and is able to claw herself out as well. So she ended up saving his life. So they both saved each other's life. How stinking cute is that? So beautiful. Love it. This is kind of a turning point where they're both kind of like, why did you do that? And he's like, well, why did you do that? Because they both won't admit their feelings for each other. This is kind of cute. And then still, she's his prisoner, so they're still going back to Aaliyah, and they kind of have all these stops, and they're kind of taking the long way home. It's just the two of them at this point because all of the other men were eradicated. They start having these sweet moments, and then they have to fight off these bandits, and then they're like going through more sweet moments, and then there's a really sweet moment where they're in a cave, and they're kind of admitting their feelings to each other in some sort of way, and they are getting closer, and they do this thing called pretend, where they pretend they're not in the actual situation they're in, and that they're just kind of normal and they can like each other and they can admit that they like each other. And it's pretend though, so then like they can turn that off and then they can go back to their normal life where they have to be enemies, and like they're like, in another world we can be pretend and whatever. So they have these like pretend moments where they're like kissing and they're like being really sweet to each other and all this stuff. And like Peyton is also like getting kind of confused with all this. She's like, is this pretend? Is this not pretend? Like she doesn't know where the line is really anymore. And then they're in this cave and they're talking and they're having this like heart to heart, and she starts freaking out because she's blood on her hands, and she's kind of coming to face with all of these deaths she's experienced, and that she has been a part of herself ending someone's life. And it's really catching up to her because she feels like an awful person, and Kai's really there to like help her through that. And it's an awesome scene. I really like it. And I also forgot to talk about, now that I'm thinking about it, the concept of Kai being powerless in this book as well. Because if you'll remember, Kai is a wielder, so he harnesses other people's power, but that in and of itself is his power. So he doesn't have a power if there's no powers around him. Peyton obviously has no powers, and indoor, no one has powers. So he is powerless for the first time in his entire life, basically. Actually, he's the first time in his life. And it's kind of beautiful because at first it scares him, but then he's kind of like at peace with it. He's like, you know what? No one sees me as this like awful, scary person. I kind of like being powerless. And it's kind of this like beautiful of like, with power comes a lot of bad things as well. And he's kind of starting to realize that and like be like, it's not bad being powerless. I'm strong in other ways. And that's kind of like a running theme throughout all of these books. It's kind of Peyton's journey of like, she's figuring out that like being ordinary isn't bad, and like there's nothing to be ashamed of about that, and like she's strong in other ways. But yeah, and then they're on their last leg of their journey, and they're right outside of Aaliyah. There's like this poppy field that is really beautiful, and they're kind of like resting in it. And this is when they really admit their feelings to each other. Kai does not know what to do because at this point they are like, the next morning they will be going back to Aaliyah. He wants to prove his loyalty to Kit, but he is scared that Kit's gonna kill her, and he doesn't know what to do about that because he loves Peyton. And he has this whole confession to Peyton. He doesn't say he loves her at this point, but it's just like I want to be with you in another life. Like, you are it for me. Like, you're my slice of heaven. You're what makes me happy. It's really, really, really sweet and beautiful. And he's like, I've been fighting it for so long. I didn't know what it felt like, but like, I want you. I want to be with you. Like, I want to save you. Like, even if I can't be with you, I want you to run away, and I'll come chasing after you always, and we'll be together in like whatever way we can be and stuff. And she doesn't want to do that because she's like, well, I want to be with you, and I want to like stand by you. I don't want to be running my whole life. Like, I want to face this and like all this stuff. But it's very sweet, and they have such a cute night, and it's like so sweet, and they confess so many things to each other, and you're like, finally, this is good. And then they wake up in the morning and they're planning on running away together, or at least Peyton running away, but there is no time because Imperials see Kai and they have to go in pretend mode again, where now the pretend mode has changed from pretending that they are in a different circumstance and like each other. Now pretend you hate me and we're enemies, so that they won't know that we love each other and we were planning on running away together because it's not safe here anymore. I can't protect you right now. So they have like a new pretend. So the Imperials come, Kai's pretending to not like Peyton at all and to like be mean to her, and he captured her and all these things. He brings her to Kit. Kit's like, thank you. I didn't think you were actually going to come back. And Kai's like, why do you doubt me so much? And Kit's like, because I know you love her. And Kai's like, nah, man, like, you're crazy. Like, I hate this person and like all this stuff. And then it comes down to, this is like the last chapter of the book. It's like, Kit is like, okay, I've decided what I'm going to do. And he's like, you know, what I'm going to do as king, everyone's talking about how I'm going mad, how I'm whatever, I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unite all the kingdoms around and Aaliyah. So before like his dad had kind of cut off all the other kingdoms with Aaliyah because he was just like, oh, you guys are ordinary, gross, no thanks. And because of that, they don't have enough food, they don't have enough water, they don't have enough resources they need to be with the other kingdoms. So Kit realizes this and is like, we need to open our borders, we need to start making peace agreements with the other kingdoms. That's what we're going to do. And to prove that we are changing, I am going to marry an ordinary. Which ordinary? Oh, none other than Peyton. Yes, he proposes to Peyton. That is what happens. And Peyton is like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? Kai is like, oh my gosh, this is one of the worst situations I ever could be a part of. So that's how book 2 ends. Yay.